Heavy rains that hit the Gaza Strip knocked down hundreds of tents that house thousands of Palestinian refugees. In Argentina, Javier Milei arrived on Tuesday at the 100th day of his mandate as president with 57.3% of negative image among the population. And social activists in the Philippines demonstrated against a visit to their nation of U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken. Hello, welcome from the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. The Palestinian Foreign Ministry denounced the Israeli government for the constant bombardment of the city of Rafah, where more than 1 million displaced persons take refuge. Through a statement, the Foreign Ministry condemned Tel Aviv's nightly air raids into Rafah, destroying homes and killing Palestinian citizens. Likewise, the entity notified that Israel did not anticipate the war campaign in order to avoid condemnation and criticism from the international community. The Israeli army continues to attack Rafah despite international demands not to launch a ground operation in the region of Gaza, populated with more than 1.4 million displaced Gazans. Local media in Palestine on Tuesday highlighted that the heavy rains that hit the Gaza Strip knocked down hundreds of tents that house thousands of Palestinian refugees. In this sense, Palestinian authorities confirmed that due to the weather conditions, thousands of people spent the night outdoors under the intense cold and heavy rainfall, including minors, women, elderly people, and patients. Precisely in the midst of the cold wave in the region, refugees asked international organizations to allow them to enter shelters, even though they are currently overcrowded. At the same time, several United Nations agencies continue to warn about the increase of hunger and the humanitarian crisis in the coastal enclave caused by the Israeli aggression and blockade. In Palestine, the National Authority Ministry of Foreign Affairs demand the international community to apply more sanctions against Israel for its vicious policy and genocide against the Gaza Strip. The national authority received with satisfaction the decision of the European Union to sanction 6 Israeli settlers responsible for violent attacks against Palestinians in the occupied West Bank. The decision was described as a step in the right direction, but insufficient, as it called on the international community to exercise real pressure on the Israeli regime to stop the settlements and dismantle terrorism in the occupied West Bank. On Tuesday, UN High Commissioner for Human Rights Volker Turk warned that Israel's restrictions on aid inflows and its continued attacks may amount to the use of starvation as a method of warfare, which constitutes a war crime.
Projected imminent famine in Gaza can and must be prevented. Israel's now 16-year-old blockade of Gaza has already had a severe impact on human rights for the civilian population, leaving the local economy devastated and creating a dependence on aid. The extent of Israel's continued restrictions on the entry of aid into Gaza, together with the manner in which it continues to conduct hostilities, may amount to the use of starvation as a method of war, which is a war crime. The clock is ticking. Everyone, especially those with influence, must insist that Israel acts to facilitate the unimpeded entry and distribution of needed humanitarian assistance.
In this sense, a report from the Integrated Food Security Phase Classification indicated they have warned on December of a risk of famine by the end of May 2024 in Gaza if there was not an immediate cessation of hostilities and sustained access for essential supplies and services to the population. Therefore, its latest warning confirms that famine is imminent in the northern governorates and is expected to occur anytime between mid-May in the northern governorates. According to the current scenario, North Gaza and Gaza governorates are Palestine. There are going to be different phases that will affect different regions of the Palestinian enclave of Gaza. In the phase 4, there are going to be famine emergency in different areas, and the report continued to note that entire population of the Gaza will face acute food insecurity, and it's an increase of 530,000 people compared to the previous analysis they made at the end of last year. The Lebanese government called on the international community to increase efforts to provide necessary humanitarian aid to Palestinian refugees and displaced persons in the midst of the persistent shelling by the Israeli regime. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Expatriates emphasized the need to support the United Nations Relief and Works Agency for Palestinian Refugees, UNRWA, so that it can give continuity to its humanitarian mission. The ministry had recalled earlier that the work of UNRWA offers hope for the survival of the Palestinian people. The United Nations organization warned that more than 570,000 Gazans are vulnerable to the crisis and lack of food and medical supplies after 6 months of Israeli bombardment. Let's take a short break, but remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you will find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. Other stories coming up. Stay with us. Welcome back. In Argentina, the leader of the La Libertad Avanza, Javier Milei, arrives on Tuesday at the 100th day of his mandate as president with 57.3% of negative image. According to a study by the consulting firm Suban Córdoba y Asociados, 55.4% of the citizens believe that the country is going in the wrong direction, and 58.8% consider that in a year's time the economic situation will be bad or as bad as it is now. As for personal reality, 51.1% have negative projections. 51.7% blame Milei and the Minister of Economy, Luis Caputo, for the worsening of the state of this nation, and 71.6% do not believe that the adjustment is being paid for by politics, as Milei reiterates. For 88.5% of those surveyed, the severe cuts are being suffered by all Argentines. In the framework of the first 100 days of Milei's administration, let's see some of the key economic indicators from this period. According to official data from the CELAC, in these 100 days, official exchange rate equivalent to $1 has increased from 391 to 897.3 Argentine pesos. At the same time, the workers' real salary has drastically dropped by over 27%, as the accumulated inflation for the period stands at 71.3%. Finally, during these first days, the purchasing capacity of minimum pension dropped from the equivalent of 1.5 basic food basket to only 1. On Monday in Uruguay, the president pro tempore of teleSUR, Argentine Alfredo Olmedo, was accused of anti-democratic practices by parliamentarians of the regional bloc. During a session held on Monday in Montevideo, representatives from Paraguay and Brazil affirmed they were assaulted by security agents hired by the president of the organization, Alfredo Olmedo. Meanwhile, several legislators did not hesitate to let him know their dissatisfaction with the measures adopted. In this sense, they complained about the attempt to restrict access to the plenary room and to disable the microphones during the session.
For me, today was a disastrous day for the organization of Mercosur Parliament. Since we arrived, we have felt wrong. They have shielded our entrance. They have obstructed our access. They have even had physical contact with me, in the sense of blocking us from entering. And that makes me feel undermined. Because if any of you come to our nation and receive this treatment, I tell you that we should take measures, because this is not the way we should be treated.
In Peru, the Public Prosecutor's Office launched an investigation against President Dina Boluarte for alleged illicit enrichment. The judicial body said that an investigation was opened after the president admitted being the owner of a Rolex watch that she has been seen wearing on several occasions. The investigation also involves the possible crime of omission to declaring documents, since it seems that Boluarte did not declare the expensive garment among her assets. The prosecutor's office had already opened an investigation against the head of state for the crime of genocide during the social mobilizations that took place between December 2022 and January 2023, resulting in the death of at least 50 citizens. In Haiti, more than 16,000 people left Port-au-Prince in the last 7 days to take refuge in the provinces amid the escalation of violence in the Caribbean country. According to data from the International Organization for Migration, the evacuation of about 16,947 Haitians from the capital took place between March 8th and the 14th. Most of the displaced went to the Department of Grand Sud, which sheltered more than 116,000 people who fled in the last few months. The city of Port-au-Prince is controlled by gangs who cut off food, fuel, and water supplies and also destroyed 4 power stations, affecting the quality of life of citizens. In Cuba, the second day of the third edition of the Patria International Symposium, which is being held at the Pavexpo Fairgrounds in the city of Havana, continues. The event welcomes more than 100 guests from 30 countries and seeks to consolidate digital political communication and the sovereign development of technologies that promote communicative progress in the nations. The president of the Union of Journalists, Ricardo Ronquillo Bello, was in charge of the welcome and highlighted that articulation is essential for unity and that both victories and setbacks in the network force them to be united. Therefore, the event seeks to broaden new horizons on the eve of a digitalized global order protected by an already limited mass communication culture, but with other ways to promote the development of ideas. As the third Patria International Symposium continues on Tuesday in the Cuban capital, participants take part in conferences on the implication of artificial intelligence for the work of the media. Our correspondent in Havana, Jordanis Rodriguez, with the details.
Thank you, friends. I salute you from Havana, Cuba. The third International Colloquium Patria continues. There are just more than 100 participants from about 30 nations. As there are held different stands of communicative projects such as teleSUR, Al-Mayadin, it has been something interesting in this conference, how the Cubans have been able to exchange with the producers of these television stations, in this case teleSUR, how they have been able to observe how the news is gestated. The podcast of teleSUR, likewise in the case of Al-Mayadin, as part of the artificial reality of communication, they have been able to witness what is happening in Gaza, and really, there are interesting moments in this debate where there are also pronouncements about what is happening in Cuba. How the U.S. government and the mafia have tried to destabilize Cuba. We live in this weekend important statements. He was visiting the event, the Executive Secretary of ALBA TCP, Cambrai Jorge Arriaza, and we also got declarations about these statements by the Deputy of the Cuban Parliament, Mariela Castro Espin, Director of the National Center of Sexual Education. In this minute, different conferences are taking place, exchanges with the communication specialists that are present in this third International Colloquium Patria. We will continue to report everything that happens from Havana, Cuba.
We have a fun short break coming up, but before we invite you to join our WhatsApp community for our English-speaking audience, you can scan the QR code on screen to join directly and share the link to reach more people. Constant news coverage of Latin American and Caribbean as well as the rest of the world. Stay connected and informed with teleSUR. Fun short break, don't go away. Welcome back. In northwest Nigeria, armed gangs attacked 2 villages over the weekend and seized at least 100 people from their homes. This event now is the latest mass abduction in the region. The gunmen attacked communities in Kaduna State, the area where nearly 300 school children were abducted less than 2 weeks ago. The abduction have been blamed on bandit groups known for mass killings and kidnappings in Nigeria's northwestern and central regions. Most of the bandits were previously herders in conflict with local communities. Security forces, meanwhile, are yet to provide any public update on the rescue operations, as the government has ruled out the payment of ransoms in the operation to free the children. Gambias National Assembly on Monday debated a bill that could repeal the law banning female genital mutilation. 42 legislators voted in favor and 4 against, referring the bill to parliamentary committees for review. If passed, the Gambia would become the first country in the world to eliminate the ban. Activists fear that a repeal would undo years of work to better protect girls and women from the practice. Female genital mutilation, which involves partial or total removal of the external genitalia, is often performed with tools such as razor blades and can cause severe bleeding, death, and complications during childbirth.
The current ban of female circumcision is a direct violation of citizens' right to practice their culture, religious, and guaranteed by the 1997 Constitution. Honorable Speaker, given the Gambia predominantly Muslim population, and the law is inconsistent with the aspiration of the majority of the people, should be reconsidered.
In this regard, women activists fear that the repeal of such a bill would undo years of work that have been doing to better protect girls and women.
If this bill is passed, it gives them a chance to go after the child marriage law, it gives them a chance to go after the domestic violence law. This is not only about female genital mutilation, but this is about women and the control of women's bodies.
The consequences of this conversation over the past few months has already had a big impact at our community level. We are seeing already that there is an increase in report of FGM.
Social activists in the Philippines demonstrated on Tuesday to reject a visit to their nation of U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken. In this sense, dozens of people rallied in Manila against the presence of the member of the administration of President Joe Biden. Blinken's visit seeks to support the Philippines amid growing tensions over territorial disputes between the Philippine government and Beijing in the South China Sea. In this context, protesters denounced that the presence of the U.S. Secretary of State only brings greater tensions and destabilization in the region.
We fear that this meeting will lead to the installation of more American military bases in our islands. Blinken is not welcome here because his agenda is not for peace and stability in the region, but it will escalate tension.
In this regard, the Chinese Foreign Ministry stressed that military cooperation between the United States and the Philippines should not be used as a tool to advance illegal claims in the South China Sea.
United States-Philippine military cooperation shouldn't harm China's sovereignty and maritime rights and interests in the South China Sea, let alone be used to provide a platform for the Philippines' illegal claims. China will continue to take necessary measures to resolutely defend its territorial sovereignty and maritime rights and interests and uphold peace and stability in the South China Sea.
On Tuesday, the Secretary General of the United Nations, Antonio Guterres, referred to the ecological crisis facing the planet and stressed that global climate shows a planet on the brink of the abyss.
Earth is issuing a distress call. The latest State of the Global Climate Report shows a planet on the brink. Fossil fuel pollution is sending climate chaos off the charts. Sirens are blaring across all major indicators. Last year saw record heat, record sea levels, and record ocean surface temperatures. Glaciers likely lost more ice than ever before. Some records are just chart-topping, they are chart-busting, and changes are speeding up.
The year 2024 will host a much more intense hurricane season than that of 2023, the World Meteorological Organization warned on Tuesday. The organization's representative for North America, Latin America, and the Caribbean, Rodney Martinez, said that conditions for 2024 will not be as benign for the region as they were in 2023. During a meeting of the Hurricane Committee of the Regional Association in Panama, the experts said that for the season beginning in June, there is an environment for cyclones to increase. Martinez said that when the Pacific is cold, hurricanes tend to become more frequent in the Caribbean, and it seems that this condition could occur in 2024. 2023 hurricane season that ended in November left a balance of 29 storms and 7 hurricanes, 3 of them of major category. In Honduras, firefighters continue to work to put out a strong wildfire that has been raging since Monday in the surroundings of La Tigra National Park near the nation's capital. The national government sent a squadron of helicopters with Bambi bucket fire suppression systems to prevent the spread of the flames in the area. Honduran President Xiomara Castro sent a message of encouragement to the teams and institutions working against the strong wildfires. The president also affirmed that all those involved in setting the fire will face justice. In France, the public transport company for urban areas of Paris has developed a voice recognition translation application for its staff that instantly transcribes and translates speech in several languages. The application, which costs €2 million, is called Tradivia, can translate into 16 languages, including English, German, Mandarin, Hindi, and Arabic. The two latest additions are Romanian and Dutch. The tool is also used for passengers' information announcements during line incidents. The RITP network will be put to the test with the 15 million viewers expected in the Paris region for the Olympic and Paralympic Games. RITP's Director of Customer Experience, Valerie Gaidot, said that they had a real problem because the agents did not have the capacity to respond to all the customers' languages, but now with the application, everything is much easier. We have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. Also join us on our social media, Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok.